Good morning, everybody. Today we are going to learn how to make this functional raft in the game of Raft, which is perfectly acceptable to be used in any easy, normal, or hard version of the game. It does count on having the entire base floor reinforced to protect from sharks, but it has a lot of features. And we're going to go through each one of those. We're also later on in this video going to show you actually how to build this design. Um, a note that even though it has two engines, it doesn't require it. It's actually the base is actually minus the hole for the anchor. It's a total of 99 blocks, so a single engine design will work for this. I just happen to do the dual engine because I like the design. So let's take a look at a couple of the features. Obviously, it has an area for animals. Currently, I think I'm sitting here at about 9 actual grass blocks in there with 2 waterers. I think without that second waterer and one of the land, I'm able to support these 5 animals perfectly fine with a single automatic sprinkler. We have a lot of storage here with our smelting station. You'll see with labels, so it allows us to kind of remind ourselves where everything is. We've got a couple random chests around here for carrying other sundry items, especially if we come over to kind of our inkwell here. And we've got multiple tree plots. So let's go upstairs here real quick. We've got obviously a gallery, or galley rather, for cooking with a little bit of garden space included. One that's usually fairly free from seagulls, so that's nice. We've got a control room with our research table here with everything easily accessible. And of course, we have a separate room in here with a little bit of storage as well. You can design, obviously, how you choose. But I found this design to be extremely functional and ultimately easy to build while playing the game. There's one extra space up here on top we do as an observation also for obviously harvesting feathers. From up here you can actually fish and use the hook pretty effectively as well. So the main base of this build is the fact of making sure that you have the base done early in the game, preferably before you build your receiver. I would recommend as a minimum having the base structure built and reinforced before you build a lot of the upper or the rest of the floors. If you have the house itself built before you go into starting the large islands, you'll have most of your infrastructure in place. Now, granted, you're not going to have things like maybe the biofuel or the engines, but of course, in this area here, you can probably have your sail. And of course, the anchor you can get fairly early as well. So anyway, this is my first house design, and we're going to go ahead and show you how to build this. All right, so we're on to phase 1, which is building the frame for this boat. And I kind of misspoke in the first video. I went back and recalculated, minusing the spaces for the engine and the anchor. You're looking at a total of 93 base raft pieces or blocks, however you wish to prefer. And so the design itself is basically 12 platforms by 8 platforms, and the back right where the anchor is has an additional 4 blocks here, and of course we've removed these 6 blocks for the future engines. Because this is only 93 blocks, like I said, you could go with a single engine design. For aesthetics purposes, I chose 2. So we're going to start with actually building the frame for this. Even though this video is not about gameplay, I do recommend starting out the game, regardless of whether easy, normal, or hard, with about a 4 or 5 by 5 base, and then kind of cram everything you need to start out in there until you can get that smelter going and start getting these pieces reinforced. Having to deal with the shark and constantly losing wood resources kind of sucks. So the sooner you can get that 4 or 5 by 5 square base started, and reinforced, the better. And then, of course, you can just kind of expand the base as you acquire iron and get it smelted until you have your base. Um, Once you do that, I find that easiest way to start here is to start with to create your borders with your four large tree planters by putting those in the corners. Like I said, this is basically a 12 by 8 design. So in the front, basically you're going over two squares, putting a post, one square post, one square post, two spaces or two squares and another post. And then the next aisle, you're basically going from the right hand side, post, two squares, post, 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 two squares. So you got two squares on either side, single squares in the center for a total of 7 posts. And then you just rinse and repeat that. Come over 2 platforms and then repeat those 7 posts again. Come over 2, repeat those 7 posts. And at this point, we're ready to actually start making the design. All right, we're going to go ahead and start with building out the first floor. You'll notice I've already put the ceiling tiles, or in this case, what will also serve as the floor for the second level, in place, following the edges of our posts, and obviously leaving the spaces open where the trees will be. And I'm going to go ahead and start with the railing around the edge. Note, if you are going to have the engines here and you're going to do the 2 engines as I've done, you're going to have to keep this space open. You won't be able to have the engines with one. And I've also got a kind of a gate here. So I'll go ahead and leave that open. And I do have a gate open there. Now, if you notice in our design, we had a line of chests that were labeled here. So you're going to have to switch, and you're going to have the solid walls here. One note is you might as well just go ahead and take that post out. It'll come in handy later. It was easier to show you that after the fact and then just continue. Now I'm going to make a note here about the placement of nets. Obviously, you notice in my design I had a few random nets that were placed throughout. You could obviously put netting wherever you have open walk spaces where you're not interfering with the actual design. And so I guess that's going to be individual preference. So I've got once you get under here, this is where we're going to have the animal pen. I do have one rail there. I apologize, it's getting a little dark. I'm going to come back through and put in, I go in here and put in our wooden gates. I'd like to have those facing outward. A note, if you have a hard time getting in and out of your boat, be cautious with putting in gates. You will find that getting in and out of the boat will be even far more difficult because you can't get in out where the rails are. You'll be forced to get in and out of the boat where the open doorways are. Let's go ahead and we'll do our basic railing in here for the animals. You can use various different, I think I used the half wooden walls. I kind of like that design for closing in the animal pen. Obviously you could use the regular gate if that's what you choose. There we go. And we'll go here. I'm just going to close this in. I have a gate opening there. And I'll put another gate here. There you go. Get your base pin going. I left this space over here. This is where we're going to ultimately have our inkwell and our anchor. this gives you the basic design for your first floor. Granted, I think in my design I actually had an open net here, so I had the railing going around that open net. I think I actually did that in a couple different areas. But this gives you your basic design. Now granted, before you get your engine, this is actually a good spot to put your anchor. Excuse me, this is a good spot to put your sail. And then of course your anchor goes over here. But once we get to the design phase, or actually the decoration phase, we'll go through how to decorate and where to place your items. Like I said, if you want to have, when it comes to net placement, I didn't define that here, even though in my original design you probably saw some random ones. But anywhere there's an open walk space, you could fill these spaces with netting. Obviously you don't want it to interfere with any of the devices that you're going to end up putting here. So let's go ahead and with this, let's go ahead and move up to doing the base for the second floor. All right, we're going to go ahead and start with the base frame for the second floor. You'll note that all of the rooms here are basically 2 squares by 4 squares with kind of a central landing here as you come up the stairs. I like to have high visibility, so you'll note that I kind of use the open door frames for most of my walls so that I can have high visibility. You may not care, but no matter which room I'm in, I prefer to be able to see what's around me. Now granted, in my design I do have a few solid walls, at least for the entrances here. So I actually did something similar to this. And I think I have my doors situated so they're basically pretty much exactly across from each other. And then here, I actually kept these open, mainly as I wanted to be able to see everything. So in this space here, we're going to do something a little bit different because this is where we have our ladder that goes to the upper floor. I would say be mindful of which direction you put that in to make sure it's there. And that gives us our base. Of course, we can go ahead and add in our doorways. Prefer those to open inward. And here I did something a little bit different. I just kind of went with our half doorway, sticking with the design of having that open so it's a little more visibility. We'll start in here. For the roofs, I recommend doing the corners first. I find those to be the easier option, and then adding the little side spaces as you need, and you'll find that it becomes especially if you have issues with spatial recognition, this will help most of you out. And you see we've got our first room there. It's pretty easy. Come over here and we'll basically rinse and repeat. And over here on this roof, we're going to do something a little bit different because we do have that platform up on top. So go ahead and just put a normal roof here. Normal flat roof, that is. Oop, did not mean to do that. All right. And then we'll just finish off this area with a little bit of railing, just to keep us from falling off of everything. takes care of the second floor. We're going to go ahead and go up here to the platform. This is fairly easy. I mean, you're just basically railing in the structure. And this will finish off your basic design of the boat without any decorations. Pretty easy build. Nothing to... All right, here's the list of all the products, I believe, all the products we're going to use for the first floor, minus the bed you see there in the upper left corner. So this should give you an idea of everything you need to build for this first floor. And we're going to go ahead and start our design. All right, we're going to continue with the build here on the second floor. Just a few last remaining items here on the first floor, just to finish that off. And we'll continue up here to continue out the build or placement of items. I'm going to make one design change here just because I could see that I missed out on this before. That obviously is going to come in handy. Here's the placement of our antenna. Not a lot of dialogue needed for this part. You're welcome. And there you have it.